Hi, boys and girls. This is our Wednesday social studies class. I could not find a very good video for this one that talked about everything that needed to be talked about in IXL. So it talks about, we're wrapping up the revolution, the American Revolution. So it's the conclusion, how things ended, as well as the aftermath, what happened to different people afterwards. Part of this is, well, all of it is American history, and honestly, some of it is pretty ugly American history because of the way Native Americans were treated, the way African Americans were treated. It's not a proud part of our history, but it is part of our history, and it is something that we learn about, and you and I as Christians can learn from it and know that that's not the way God wants us to treat each other. He wants us to be respectful. He wants us to show Christian love to all people, no matter what their skin color is. So you will hear some things that are not so good, but again, it is our history. So let me flip the camera. Okay. All right. So the American Revolution. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep bumping that cord. When the British lost at Saratoga, they changed their plans. They decided they wanted to control the southern colonies, and there was a reason for that. They thought there would be more loyalists in the southern colonies. Remember, the loyalists backed Britain, so they thought they would have more people that would support them and help them. They also were hoping to get the colonies to fight against each other. Let's see if we can get them to go against everything that they're trying to accomplish. Okay, so sometimes we do that with our friends. We try to get them to fight against each other. So, but that's not what we should do. Okay, there's a man in our lesson, Benedict Arnold. He was a hero for the Patriots. He was one of the best soldiers that they had, one of the best men that they had, but he became a traitor. And I'll explain what a traitor is in a minute, because he didn't get the credit he deserved at Saratoga. So he kind of had an attitude, or he was pretty proud of himself. And he got mad because he didn't get the credit he deserved. And he also disagreed with the Continental Congress, which was the colonies. He didn't agree with everything that they were talking about, okay? Now, a traitor is a person who betrays or turns away from his or her country. So what he ended up doing was going to the British and telling them what was going on with the Continental Army, so that he could get in good with the British. So he's basically telling them secrets and stuff like that. Now we have a French officer named Major General Lafayette. He's in the Continental Army. He's from France, and he's helping fight the war. He was good at outsmarting the enemy. He told Washington, and this is a quote, "I am not strong enough to even get beaten." So what did he mean by that? He meant that he could not afford to even lose a single battle. He realized that he couldn't go fight by himself. He needed help from others. So now we have British General Cornwallis, and he was sent to defend a port on the Chesapeake Bay. He could pick which one, and on the map you'll see there's like 4 different cities. He chose Yorktown. So the French and the Americans found out that he was in Yorktown and that he was trying to take over Yorktown. So they worked together. Remember, the French were fighting for the Americans. They trapped Cornwallis at Yorktown, and you'll see that on the map. The British Navy, okay, so like here's Yorktown, here's the water, the Chesapeake Bay going out into the ocean. So the French had their ships here, and the British were out here. So the British could not get through to help Cornwallis at Yorktown because the French blocked their way. The war ended with a document called the Treaty of Paris, signed in 1783. Now, it's kind of weird that you've got the British fighting against the Americans, or the colonies, but we have the Treaty of Paris ending the war. It was called the Treaty of Paris because it was signed in Paris, France. The colonies sent some men over to Paris, as did the British send some men over to Paris, and that's where the agreement was drawn up. The effects of the Treaty of Paris on the Native Americans, this is part of our bad history. The U.S. was given control of all Native American lands east of the Mississippi River. So basically, the Native Americans lost their lands, which was not right because that land was promised to them. Or, no, that wasn't quite there yet. We didn't have the land promised to them. But the land belonged to the Native Americans because they were there before everybody else. Unfortunately, that was one of the things that happened. Native Americans were not treated fairly. They were not respected. Some of the enslaved people, so the slaves, and those were mostly black or African American, that fought in the Continental Army, the effects of the war on them. Some of them just left the United States forever. They didn't want a part of it. Others were granted their freedom, and still others were forced back into slavery. And you remember that, well, we'll talk about it later on this year. We'll get to the Civil War, which was the war between the North and the South here in America. And it was fought for freeing black people from slavery, okay? And then the effects of the war on the United States itself, it left the United States deep in debt. The French came and helped fight. They gave us ammunition and stuff like that. So we were in debt to them. We were in debt for all of the things, all of the stuff that went on here in America. The United States did not want a strong government. That's what the British government was. They didn't want to be like that. The first government of the United States was a weak government on purpose. They did not want to be like the British government. They wanted a weak federal government and a stronger state government. And that's the way things are right now. So go to Social Studies, IXL Social Studies B8, and that finishes up this section. And when we come back from break, we'll work on another one. Whoops. So have an awesome day.